Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen.
And my name is Katie. And we want to spend a few minutes a day with you walking through the New Testament, one chapter at a time. This year, we will fix our gaze upon Christ so that we may know him, not only with our minds, but with our hearts.
Together, we will learn that who Jesus is changes everything. Welcome back. My name is Kristen Schmucker, and if you are new here, we are diving into the entire New Testament, one chapter a day this year, and today we are in Matthew 11, and I have to tell you that the end of this chapter contains some of my favorite verses in all of Scripture, so I'm really excited about today. If you have done your reading today, you probably already know what I'm talking about. As always, I am using the free Behold reading plan and the Behold study guides from the Daily Grace Co., and we will link those for you in the show notes. I also wanted to mention one of my favorite tools for this journey is the Behold journal set. Whether you are using the study guides or not, the journal set provides space to journal about every chapter of the New Testament, and as someone who loves to prayer journal, these are just some of my favorite tools. Let's dive in to Matthew chapter 11. The last few verses of Matthew 11 are some of my favorite verses in all of the Bible, but they might seem a little unexpected in this chapter. The beginning of Matthew 11 talks about doubt. Doubt can be a hard topic to talk about, but if you are someone that has ever experienced or is currently experiencing doubt, you are not alone. And Jesus speaks to doubt right here in Matthew 11. It is here that we see John the Baptist doubting. This was John, who Jesus describes as the greatest born among women, and yet he doubted. Have you ever walked through a season of doubt where you question things like, what if none of this is true? Or what if I have built my life on something that isn't real? John was in prison, and things were probably not happening the way that he expected when he proclaimed the coming of the kingdom and baptized Jesus just a few chapters before. These unexpected circumstances may have caused him to doubt his faith. I love how C.S. Lewis describes faith in Mere Christianity. He says that faith is the art of holding on to things our reason has accepted, despite our change of moods. It was likely much easier for John to believe while he stood in the river with Jesus, hearing the voice of the Father and seeing the Spirit descend as a dove. But prison probably challenged his faith. We see in the Old Testament something similar when Elijah doubts and is discouraged right after seeing the Lord's miraculous provision. Before you are tempted to ask how John could possibly doubt, look at how Jesus responds to him. Jesus answered his questions with love and compassion. The life of faith is one of trusting in the good times and the bad, and he always responds to us with a heart of love and compassion, even in our doubting and our weakness. As the chapter continues, Jesus speaks to this unresponsive generation. Jesus calls out by name the cities where he had performed so many miracles and compared them to well-known pagan cities. These cities had seen Jesus' miracles, but they had not believed. In verse 25, Jesus says that the Father has hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and revealed them to infants. Jesus was pointing out that truth is hidden from those that think they are self-sufficient, but it is revealed to the dependent, to those that come with faith like a child. This is the upside-down kingdom that Jesus came to preach, and it echoes the themes of the Sermon on the Mount. I told you the final verses of this chapter were some of my favorites, so let's take a moment to read them here. Jesus had just addressed doubt and the struggle of faith, as well as the rejection of the gospel. But in these verses, he calls all who are weary to come to him. He says in Matthew 11:28 through 30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The most striking thing about this passage is that it is the only place in all of the Gospels where Jesus describes himself. He tells us here who he is, and he is better than we could ever imagine. Jesus could describe himself in any way, but these are the words that he chooses to help us understand his heart. Jesus calls to the weary and the burdened with a promise of rest. He calls to those who are tired, overwhelmed, disappointed, weary, and waiting, and he offers himself. He does not run from us in our weakness, he runs to us. He does not ask for us to get rid of our burdens before we come to him. Instead, he stands with arms open wide to welcome those who have been battered by this world and disappointed by life. He doesn't give us a list of requirements before we come. Instead, the only qualification is our need. He calls to the weary and the burdened, not the self-sufficient and the successful. He calls to us and he shows us that he is gentle and lowly. He does not stand in accusation. He is not harsh or critical. His desire is for us to come with all of who we are, all of our brokenness and suffering, all of our waiting and disappointment. Come to Jesus, and you will never be turned away. Every day we ask the question, how can we behold Jesus in this passage? I don't know about you, but I feel like I could fill a whole journal with what I learn about who Jesus is from this passage. He is our place to run with any doubt that ever crosses our mind. He is sovereign over all things. He is gentle and lowly. He doesn't ask us to fix ourselves before we come to him. He stands with arms open wide. He is the place that we find rest for our souls and joy that transcends every circumstance of life. How did you behold Jesus today? Let us know on Instagram and at Daily Grace Podcast. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, friends.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. Don't forget to check out the show notes for helpful links and resources related to today's episode. And make sure you are following at Daily Grace Podcast on Instagram for more A Year in the Bible content and at the Daily Grace Co. for all things Bible study resources. We can't wait to study again with you tomorrow. Bye, friends.